this virus situation is actually bringing balance to many systems within our lifespan. This could be economic balance, it could be environmental balance, financial balance, but also mainly our balance inside our human bodies. Because when you are in a state of peace and balance, what happens is that your human body becomes immune to any sort of virus that's going on, because you're now in a state of balance. And now it's been even proven scientifically that this particular virus thrives on weaker immune systems and higher stress levels. And stress creates a chemical called cortisol that weakens our immune system. So technically, if you're in fear, lack, scarcity, panic, feeling not good enough, feeling stuck, feeling overwhelmed, what should I do? I'm stuck in the house. You're actually creating more susceptibility to what's going on outside. And one thing to remember is that fear always brings fewer options. So what does this mean? What does resilience mean? For me, resilience means choosing to be certain in the face of uncertainty. And that's really important, because resilience is directly in proportion to your level of consciousness and to your level of conscious awareness. It's directly in proportion. Because consciousness, and I want you to really understand this, that consciousness is the only currency on the planet. Everything is just consciousness. So when you are in lower states of consciousness, which is what we call victim consciousness, and when I was in Japan, when I was working in Japan from 2005, 2007, they called this concept of victim consciousness, they would call it Kensho. It's called a Kensho moment. So when you are in a state of victim consciousness, which means you are in fear, you are in lack, you are in scarcity, you are feeling stuck, you are feeling overwhelmed, you can't really do much. You feel stuck. And what does a victim do? A victim will always look for a villain. Who's the villain? They will always look for someone to blame, someone to complain to, or start judging yourself and judging other people. That's what usually victim consciousness does. So you come from a place of life is always happening to me. But when you move into higher levels of consciousness, higher states of consciousness, you create very differently. You look at life in a very different way. Say, I am more than my conditions. I am more than my circumstances. I'm more than just being a victim of situations. And you realize that you have the power, the ability, and the wisdom to create whatever reality you want to create. So you move away from blaming, you move away from complaining, you move away from judging other people and judging yourself, and you actually step into your power. And you come with a belief that says, no matter what happens, life is always happening for me. And in Japan, they used to call this concept Satori. So you either have a Kensho moment or you have a Satori moment. Now, what happens in higher states of consciousness, and that's very linked to resilience, you will see infinite possibilities, you will see infinite potential, and at the same time, you will allow energy and your intuition to guide you forward. Because at the very level of the soul, at the soul level, who are we? We are peace, we are harmony, we are love, we are joy, we are prosperity, we are abundance. We are all these things. So when you create from this higher level of consciousness, your life experiences become very different regardless of what's happening outside. That's why the signature of gratitude is so important. So you start seeing infinite potential, you start seeing infinite possibilities showing up in your current environment. So that's why I believe when you move from lower dimensions to higher dimensions, you'll see your life experiences changing a lot. The other thing to remember is that our perceptions create our reality. So whatever we perceive, we are focusing on that. We are drawing.
Sorry, we can't hear you, Danny. Can you please check your mic? Sorry.
He's gone on mute, so he has to unmute it or.
I think it's getting muted by itself. I'm not doing anything, and it gets unmuted by itself as well. So I think somebody's controlling it. Can everybody hear me now? All right, so here we go. So what I was saying is, the other thing to remember is that our perceptions create our reality. What we perceive is where we direct our energy and our attention to. And that eventually starts becoming a reality. So if we are spending a lot of time watching the news, if we are spending a lot of time watching the talk shows that tells us what is wrong with the environment, what is wrong with us, and what's going wrong, we eventually start seeing that happening in our own reality. So the first step towards resilience, I believe, or to disrupt the status quo, is to go into acceptance mode, is to accept whatever is happening is happening. And the best way to get into acceptance is to use something that I've been doing for a lot of time, is to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is a very powerful way to stop where you are. Because when you're in a state of mindfulness, what you're actually doing is that you're bringing yourself back into the present moment. Because most people are either fixated on past losses or trauma, or they are very anxious about the future. But when you bring yourself into the present moment, you realize that you're pretty okay. You're doing okay. And then from moment to moment, you move forward, and then you can eventually create a reality that you really want to step into. Because you cannot see a solution when you're sitting at the level of the problem. I'll give you an example. If you want to listen to a song on FM 100, but if your radio is on FM 93, you can't listen to what's playing on 100. So what do? You take the dial and you change the frequency to raise it to 100, and now you can listen to what's playing on 100. And this is the same way consciousness works. When you move from lower levels of consciousness and you change the frequency to higher levels of consciousness, the level of your resilience goes way higher. And now you're no longer at the level of the problem, now you're thinking at the level of the solution. So in short, when you change your story, you change your results. Yeah. The other thing if people who are not very familiar with mindfulness, I would say it's like when you drive a car and you're at a traffic light and the light turns red, what do? You stop, right? You don't break the traffic light, hopefully not. You don't break the traffic light, and you stop and you allow the cars to go by right, left, everywhere else. And once you're back on green and there is nothing in front of you, now you're ready to go. And this is exactly what this whole pandemic is teaching us. They're asking you to stop. They're asking you to re-examine. They're asking you to re-energize. They're asking you to recalibrate. So it's actually this experience is happening for you, is happening for your resilience and not against you. The second thing I would say is, focus on faith. Moving from fear to faith is very important. It's a God-given ability we have, having faith in what we're doing. The human race is very powerful. If you don't have any faith, you don't have a life. So, trust yourself, use the power of your faith. And also, and this is what I hear very often when I'm consulting for governments or consulting for companies, they will say, we don't have resources. Oh, there's lack of resources. There is never a lack of resources. There's always a lack of resourcefulness. If you're resourceful, you'll get things done. I moved from corporate, after 19 years in corporate across 5 different locations, I've decided to start my own company. Was it difficult? Yes, it was. I didn't have all the resources and everything at my disposal, but you have to become resourceful. You have to become resourceful in life to get what you want. You got to start thinking differently. I'll give you an example. I have one of my clients he runs a hedge fund, a US hedge fund. And he got very worried. He's a very transactional kind of guy, gets very worried in the COVID-19 and Hong Kong protests. Hong Kong actually had protests for 1 year, and now we are in COVID-19. So we've had a really bad economic year, really bad. So he was very worried about the business side of things. When you're in lockdown, you start thinking differently. And from being transactional, he's completely changed the way he looks at his business and he looks at his wife, his children, his family, his clients. He says, I'm more connected to them. I am spending quality time with my entire family, with even my clients. And now, for the first time, he's come up with a purpose-driven ideology within his company. And what he's done, he's shifted a large part of his hedge fund portfolio to servicing medical institutes, helping them doing research for new diseases, and also funding children to go to school and colleges in underdeveloping countries. Now, he said, I'd never thought about this for many years. I've been running this hedge fund. Suddenly, when you're reflecting, you think about more meaning in your life. And now, he tells me that the last 2-3 months where he was very scared have turned out to be one of the best time in his life. All right. And I can give you so many examples of this. So the most important thing you got to understand is the thing that makes people happy is not success, it's progress. Because when you're successful, how long do you celebrate? 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 days, 3 months, 2 years? How long do you celebrate? You forget about it.
Yes.
People are happy when they see progress, not just the success of it. All right. So resilience is always in proportion to your level of consciousness, to your level of conscious awareness. And to do that, start with acceptance, move from fear to faith, and start becoming resourceful. And so regardless of whether that's personal disruption or whether that's environmental disruption, you will always, always find your way out. I hope this helps.
Gigi, thank you, Danny. Great insights. So you recommend practice mindfulness, and you recommend to live in the present, take control yourself, and believe in the faith is more important than the fear. You recommend journey from fear to faith. There is no such thing as lack of resources. It's an excellent sentence, actually. I would like to quote somewhere. Lack of resources does not exist. Actually, you talk about lack of resourcefulness. Excellent insights. I would like to ask Mr. Waqarul Islam, and he would like, I would request him to guide us from the scenario of a corporate leadership. Because Danny has mostly talked about a person, and who the person can be a leader in the organization. Now, as a leader of Java Business System, how would you apply all these? And you would also like to enlighten us on the organizational resilience. Yes, Mr. Waqar.
Thank you, Shahzad. Great insights, Danny. Thank you very much. Great to be here. I'll just try and build the topic and come back to your question by taking the lead from the caption of the topic and see how do we build it into a resilient organization, or for that matter, resilient individuals, right? So the topic really is about opportunities in adversity, and all of us know we are living in unprecedented times. So what are the opportunities available to each one of us in our various roles in societies and businesses, which we can use this adversity to turn it into an opportunity for all of us? And I would like to characterize it into 3 different categories, if you like. First is personal. What's the biggest opportunity for me or people out there who are listening to us or watching us? I think the biggest opportunity for us is that for the first time, possibly, we are seeing the impact of our own actions and how it affects us, each one of us individually, and how it will affect each one of the people around us, possibly the most dear and the near ones. And that we have never experienced before, and in such a profound way, which means what you say, what you do, how you act, how you shake hands, how you behave with people, how you take care of them or not take care of them, how does it affect you? And we're not just talking about affecting people for 1 or 2 days. We are actually talking about affecting lives. We are actually talking about affecting humanity. So the opportunity available to each one of us is to become a better person, is to become a more aware person, is to become a more responsible person. Then let's come to professional side of it, which is because on the professional side, what has happened is that suddenly the lockdown happened. We were seeing it coming for a few weeks, but possibly we never believed it. Then it came, and it literally came at the stroke of a pen, and boom, tomorrow everything is closed. And from tomorrow, you need to now start working in a different way, behaving in a different way, talking in a different way than possibly what you have ever done for many, what you have ever done in your entire life. So what does it do? This working from home or remote working principle is not just about sitting in the comfort of your home and doing something. It's about putting responsibility of you as an individual to produce the outcome for which you are hired, rather than what they call body in seat mentality, where or you only work when you are in front of someone and or you are being watched. Now you are responsible for your own acts. Nobody is watching you, nobody is seeing you, and all that is there is you and your productivity, your outcome, your responsibility, your accountability to the work or to the time available that you have. Imagine the development opportunity available when people are given this kind of opportunity to improve. So that's on the professional side. Then on the business side or on the corporate side. So even in this crisis, while everyone will argue, and rightly so, that nobody could have anticipated the times that we are going through. This is unprecedented. This we could have never thought about. But even in these times, organizations which anticipated the future rather than those which waited for the future, they are the most resilient one. They are going through these times much better than those who thought future, when it comes, we'll see it and we'll take the future as it comes to us, rather than anticipating the future. And just to give an example, I mean, Amazon is hiring in these times, and they are hiring in thousands, while US has already laid off, I don't know, close to 4 million people, but Amazon has hired 75,000 plus people in this time. So they anticipated what is happening, and this is what the businesses need to do now, is to anticipate what will happen tomorrow. We're literally living day to day, month to month, year to year, and possibly this mode will continue for 1 to 2 years. Who knows as to how things will unfold as we go ahead. But it is still about anticipating your tomorrow. And if you have not done it up till now, this is the time to do it. This is the time to anticipate, take corrective action, and move on, and take fast action. So just to try and sum it up into what has happened, say, in the last 8 weeks or 10 weeks that we are in this lockdown, and we are in a more or less economy freeze mode, if you like, in for many parts of the economy. I mean, I read yesterday that in April the auto sales was zero. I mean, could you imagine? Not a single car sold in this country in the month of April. So imagine what's happening to the auto sector. Imagine what they are going through. Imagine the kind of leadership crisis they are in, and what sort of planning and anticipation and actions they need to do. So what has happened in the last few weeks, which tells you the opportunities that have been created. And then I'll sum up by saying two biggest opportunities that exist for organizations and leaders especially. So first, look at how governments have responded to this crisis. I mean, governments which are considered archaic, bureaucratic, slow in decision making, doesn't act. So in Pakistan, imagine in 8 weeks, we conceived a program we gathered data of almost 12 million people in a country like Pakistan, where documentation clearly is not our forte. And guess what? Out of 12 million, possibly 8 million plus have received direct cash from the government. Formal sector, informal sector, doesn't matter. So the speed of decision making, the quality of decision making, the execution, something we have never heard of in a public sector, has happened. How government responded to making decisions in terms of lockdowns, in terms of banning travel, in terms of closing schools, in terms of amending laws to make sure that they can take care of some of these changes, is again unprecedented. And I'm talking about government. then imagine what has happened at our individual or business level. One fine morning you wake up and you say you will be working from home. But many of us said, oh, we never work from home. We don't even know how to work the tool. We don't even know how to log into Zoom or how to log into Team, how to send invite, how to work together. Enablement sessions were run, and I read a note from CEO of Microsoft. 500 million people have moved to Teams. I mean, a staggering number. And imagine the time frame that we have. So new way of working has emerged. It's an opportunity, but it also tells us how adaptive we are to change once it is thrown to us, provided change is not forced upon us, but you anticipate change and you become part of the change rather than waiting for change to come to us and then react. That's the only thing which is different, but we are living in changing times. So two biggest opportunities that I see, and then we can move on to the next part. First is for economies like us. I think it's a massive opportunity to document the economy. I don't think we even understand the opportunity available to us in terms of documenting the economy and moving towards digital. I believe through policy intervention and not just market forces alone, government needs to come up with a digital world solution to social distancing rather than trying to find solution only in the physical world. I mean, you need intervention in the physical world, I do understand that, but it's about constructing a digital world, move every person, job, function, offices, business, consumer, who can move in online, move them online, get them out of the physical space. That's the only way you can create social distancing, which is what the new normal is till the time cure is available or till the time we find another way of dealing with virus, because even when the cure is available, the virus will still be there and we still need to learn how to deal with it. The second biggest opportunity that is available to me is about leadership. And it is about adaptive leadership. As Darwin said, I think in times of change, it's not the strongest who survive, it's the most adaptive who actually survive. So it is about leadership, where leadership needs to be a lot more outcome driven, productivity driven, accountability driven, developing people to take more responsibilities instead of asking people to be physically present and ensuring that they only work when there are two eyes looking at them. And it's a different kind of leadership. It's a leadership which doesn't micromanage. It's a leadership which develop others rather than force others to work. It's a leadership which doesn't produce order executors, but which produce innovators, which produce thinkers, which produce change agents. So it's these two, going digital and changing the style of leadership, can change everything, the way it worked in. And I actually believe that will define the new normal whenever it becomes a reality. Thank you, sir.
Excellent insights, Mr. Ricard. To just summarize and to just takeaways. So actually you are saying that there is, in every adversity, there are opportunities, but the opportunities can only be availed by those who are prepared, those who are resilient, those who have anticipated, and who are prepared to go to the new norms. And the leadership has to apply the adaptive approach and the proactive approach, and they have to develop people. And this brings me to the next question on the people development. And who can be the better person to talk about it other than Mr. Isfandiar Inayat, who is representing the Citizen Foundation with a network of almost 2,000 schools. Ji, Isfandiar Sahab, what's your takeaway on all these things? Now we have talked about the personal development, and we have also talked about the organizational resilience. Now, what about the human development, the training, the education side? Please unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shehzad, for again giving me the opportunity. I would just like to again further build on what the other panelists have just said. Resilience for me is about how quickly we recover from difficulties, from tough situations. And we were also talking about when we are out of balance. So disruption, whether again it is caused by market forces or pandemics, or in almost all the cases, our homeostatic balance is when it get upset, we get out of balance. And the natural law of homeostasis is that when an organism is stays in it stays in perfect balance, but when it is acted upon by outside force, it upsets its homeostatic balance, and that disruption causes status quo uh, to go out of balance. And we as humans normally we rarely take action until we are out of balance. And these days we all agree that we are out of balance. And as an organization, TCF, we always choose to respond towards situation rather than we react towards situations. See, again, for the audience sake, reaction is negative and responding is positive. For example, if you go to the doctor and you tell him that you have pain in your stomach, and he gives you medicine, and after 2 days you get pimples on your face, and you go to the doctor and tell him that I have, instead of getting better, I have now pimples on my stomach. He changes, and the doctor would say, oh, your body is reacting. So he changes your medicine. You go back to the doctor after 2 days, your stomach pain is better, your pimples have gone, and the doctor will say, oh, now your body is responding towards medicine. So reaction is negative and responding is always positive. I love the story about these two brothers who one brother was a corporate executive, and the other one was an alcoholic and drug addict. And their father was also a drug addict and alcoholic, and he ended up going to jail. So I was reading this in Reader's Digest. So once they both were interviewed, both the brothers were interviewed, and they were asked that, why are you like that? And interestingly, both the brothers responded and answered the same in the same manner. They said, because of my father. Because the successful one said that, what do you think? I knew that my father was an alcoholic, and had I followed his footsteps, I would have ended up going to jail. And the other one said that, what do you expect? My father was an alcoholic. I want to be an alcoholic. So the one brother looked at the possibilities, and the other brother didn't look at the possibilities. So coming back to your question about education, that the role of education and how TCF is doing, I would say that 25 years back we decided to respond towards the education crisis, which is again ubiquitous all across Pakistan. There are approximately 22.8 million children who are out of school. We have the second highest out of school population in the world after Nigeria. It's not India, it's not Afghanistan, it's not Bangladesh, it is Pakistan, which has the second highest out of school children between the age of 5 and 16. I was reading a very interesting book, Factfulness, and in that it was written by a Swedish author. And the Swedish author said that in 1890s, Sweden was where Somalia is today. In 1950s, Sweden was where Egypt is today. And look where Sweden is sitting today. And the direct correlation is in Sweden's growth is in their education. They have one of the best education systems in the world. And we at TCF also believe that unless and until we don't put education as our priority, we will never become a resilient nation the way other nations, especially in the first world, are. So right now, again, we are facing two challenges. Number one challenge is that the immediate need for ration and food and relief for the families and the children who we serve, who we have been serving for the past 25 years. And so again, for pandemic, we responded, and we responded by saying that since we have been serving them, we should have some kind of relief appeal for these people, and we should provide cash or ration to these families. So on 1st April, we started our fund, and we in the first week only we provided ration to 1,000 families. To date, we have provided 18,500 families relieved through cash, and in 67 different locations. We are probably the only organization in Pakistan right now who are doing and providing relief efforts across Pakistan in all 4 provinces. And we target to again provide relief to 100,000 families through this appeal. So this is something, again, the immediate danger or immediate thing which we thought we should be, or tactical level we should be working on. The second challenge which we are facing is that the schools are closed. And unlike affluent families, we don't have online systems in our children's home. They don't have digital technology available. So that is a big challenge. And as Danny was mentioning, and Waqar was also mentioning, that we should look at the possibilities. So we again looked at the possibilities, that what other possible options do we have for these children. So number one thing which we did was that we are doing a pilot with 15,000 students. We have printed a magazine, and in that magazine, what we have done is that we have made it very engaging. We have made puzzles, stories, coloring, problem-solving options for those children, and we'll be distributing those magazines to these children, because our research says that especially in endemic-like situations, enrollment drops drastically when the situation normalizes. And in this particular case, we are also foreseeing that there is a great possibility, because a livelihood of a lot of children and a lot of families have been hurt on a massive scale. So we might see less children coming back to schools. So in order to keep the momentum going and keep them engaged, what we are doing is that through these magazines, we'll pilot them and see the results. And if the results are positive, we'll again scale them to further locations. Number two, what we have done is that we have partnered with the Education Ministry, PTV, and we have again, and with a lot of other private partners, we have designed a lot of programs. And TCF is focusing on early childhood programs, and through those programs, we are again providing and beaming educational material to millions of children across Pakistan. And since television penetration is 94% in all households across Pakistan, so we think that through this channel, we will be able to, again, we will not be able to totally compensate how things work in schools, but we are pretty sure that this will help us engaging these children. It will, to some extent, help us continue their education, and eventually it will also help us to further continue their education. And last thing is that we are also engaging our teachers. We're training those teachers on lesson plannings. We don't want to burden the children once they come back. So the lesson plans should be planned accordingly so that the children don't feel the burden once they're back. And number two, we are training them on counseling parents and children. So once they are back, our teachers should be in a position to counsel the parents and children, so that we have the minimal effect on the enrollment.
Beautiful insights, Mr. Isfandiar. I would like to quote a verse from the Holy Quran. For inna ma'al usri yusra, inna ma'al usri yusra, which means with every difficulty there is an ease. So in these situations, whenever there is an adversity, there are a lot of opportunities, and we all know that. And everybody has spoken about to be resourceful and to respond rather than to react, and focused on the preparedness. Now, hypothetically, suppose one of the organization is very much well prepared. They are also digitalized, but they still go into the crisis due to some reason. There might be some failures, not because के उनकी तैयारी नहीं थी, prepared नहीं थे, but there might be some other factors, जिसको हम कह सकते हैं external factors. So my question would be, if there is some such scenario, what would you advise to the leaders? How should the leaders behave in the crisis? I understand the point to be responsive. I understand the point to be prepared. What would be the, say, three key points in your views? Let me ask Mr. Ricardo Lislam first from his organizational leadership point of view.
Okay, so there are things that you can do within the portfolio that you have or within the business that you do, and again you need to look for opportunities how to keep things going, right? And that's one piece of leadership where we review everything internally and say within the realm of what we have been doing and what we know, what can we do differently to keep some momentum going. Now, whatever we say, in majority, there is a slowdown, and this is possibly the first crisis of its kind, which has affected the demand side of economy and the supply side of economy at the same time. This typically has not happened, and the playbook is not available. So hence, first is to look inward and see whatever you can do from within your means to keep some wheel rolling. Is what needs to be looked at. Remember, in crisis times, conventional wisdom doesn't work. So you need to think different. You need to think out of the box. You need to think in a different way to handle the same issues that you were doing previously, and possibly in a nice way. The second piece is, and I gave the example of an automobile industry. I mean, there are no consumers, and as I said, and that's the problem of the demand side. There are no consumers to buy, and they're not buying it. So what do they do? Do they close, or should they find another way to keep their resources engaged in something different? And maybe there are opportunities available to do R&D at this point in time. Maybe there are opportunities available to find new avenues of generating revenues by servicing existing cars in a different way. Maybe there is a way to reach out to customers and come up with a different solution to solve transport problem, because public transport is locked down and possibly it will remain locked down for a longish period of time. Maybe there is a chance to completely come up with a new portfolio. So leadership in times of crisis responds much faster, responds and continues to anticipate the tomorrow. And I think that's the key. Now, it is tough, I'll not try and oversimplify that in this time. I will know and I can predict what will happen tomorrow, and it will happen like this. But what I do know is the ground reality. I have the facts on ground, and based on that, I can form an educated opinion and continue to monitor it and continue to make changes in my leadership and in my decision making, so that I can adapt much faster than whatever I've done in in our lifetime possibly. So no easy answer, but there is no shortcut to anticipating future. There is no shortcut to creating new ways of doing things rather than waiting for crisis to happen. And the example that Swadhyar gave on TCF, where imagine they are dealing with the class of society which doesn't have access to technology, still found another way of reaching out and achieving. Now, is it optimum? Absolutely not. If I give him a choice and today everything comes back to normal, will he carry on with that method? Maybe not, but will he carry on with that method? Maybe 5%, maybe yes. And he'll find some learning from there to solidify it and make it a permanent feature. So the key in these crisis time is adaptive leadership, anticipating changes, making sure you are making quick decisions, making sure you are as detailed and operational as it can get in order to make quick decisions, because the whole organization is looking at you and looking for guidance, because many of your people don't know how to react in this time. So a lot of responsibility is on the shoulder of leadership and how they navigate through these very, very tough times, rather than just waiting and keep doing what they were doing before, and hopefully things will open tomorrow. That's the worst mode to be in. This is not a time to be waiting for something to happen by someone else, and then we can react. I mean, something can be done today, and it needs to be done today and needs to be done.
Great insights, Vikas. So we cannot depend on the conventional wisdom. We have to keep thinking out of the box. We have to be adaptive, anticipating. Quick decision making is the key, and a leader has to be much detailed. And I think there should be one more thing here, that he should be respected and trusted. The leader who is not trusted, who the people do not believe in him, so there is no use. He cannot bring a change. And I would like to invite Mr. Danny and to give us few as an executive coach. What do you advise your clients on the leadership?
Well, in particular, this situation that you have spoken of, and I appreciate Vakar's views. I think they're very, very spot on and very insightful. In my experience, I see leaders define themselves in only two ways. You are either defined as a vision of the future or a memory of the past. What does that mean? Now, most leaders that I've seen, and they could be in very good positions, they come from a place of being defined as a memory of the past. And what that means is, if you have the same thoughts, the same behaviors, and you take the same actions on a daily basis, you're going to create similar results. And as a result, you don't always anticipate unforeseen situations. But those leaders who define themselves as a vision of the future, their thinking is always very different. Because when you define yourself as a vision of the future, you know that you will be in some sort of unknown territory at some point in your journey. So you're always there prepared for anything that the situation, life, or any business situation gets thrown at you, because you have decided to focus on a vision as opposed to what's happening in current reality. And that's a very powerful way to work. And that's why purpose comes in. Those leaders that they're running a business from a very purposeful, a very meaningful space, they usually navigate through challenges much easily. They are inherently more resilient. They build a structure that's more resilient. Their processes are more resilient. Their people are more inspired, because inspiration pulls and motivation pushes. So motivation is something you do externally, and I'll say, come on, Shehzad, come on, do a good job. You can do it, and all that. That's motivation. But inspiration comes from within. That's why we say inspiration is in spirit. So when you create a purpose and a vision for your business, people are pulled by it. They're inspired by it. And even in times of adversity, and even in times of turmoil or something unforeseen comes, people are not fazed by it. They know that they will get through it. So that visionary leadership is, I find, most of the time lacking in corporate organizations. And if you can bring that piece where you're more authentic as a leader, where you're communicating with people on a regular basis, you're listening without prejudice, listening without judgment, you are building relationships and a very clear vision in mind, you can sail and navigate through any situation. So, I would say that that's a really useful thing to have.
Great. Mr. Isfandiar, how would you highlight from the perspective of education on this? जिसको हम कहते हैं उर्दू में तालीम और तरबियत, तो तरबियत वाला जो एलिमेंट है, how would you bring this तरबियत element into it?
Okay. Thank you very much, Shazad. Well, I would like to put a little bit add on to the leadership part.
Okay.
That I personally feel that everything rises and falls on leadership, and especially in these times, organizers, leaders, as Danny was mentioning, that communication. So I would recommend that we should communicate and over communicate. We should communicate candidly and as frequently as possible. If need be, we should do it on daily basis about the current state of the business. That is what we have been doing. We hold daily huddles every day at TCF, and we keep our employees updated regardless whichever level you are working on. And in these difficult times, employees should be able to know that what is exactly happening in the organization, because when you don't give them regular information, they'll again fill the vacuum through misinformation. And even at team leaders level, they should feel that they are also leaders, because I believe that everyone cannot be a great leader, but everyone can become a better leader. So it is the leadership roles which should provide clarity and what needs to be done, what is urgent, what can wait. So all those clarities, I think it is extremely important that should be provided by the leadership, and the message should be consistent. That is again extremely important. Inconsistent messaging is one of the major reasons why messages go wrong. Employees, through consistent messaging, they experience lack of clarity, uncertainty, anxiety, and again, there's a lot of disruption which again takes place because of that. And there's never been much more at stake than ever before, especially in these unprecedented times. So now more than ever, we need to be real as leaders. We need to be human, and we need to pay extra attention to the most important people at our work and at our home as well. So as far as TCF is concerned, we are paying a lot of attention towards, especially I would say that whatever we have built and whatever we have gained in the last 25 years is our students and is our teachers. And we are again focusing and working towards their training and development. Our teachers have to go through 100 hours of training every year. That is mandatory. They don't have an option. Every year, our teachers have to go through a content test. So whatever content they are teaching, they have to go through and pass a test in whichever subject they are. So as far as the tarbiyat or upbringing is concerned, TCF is very much focused on not only the education part, we also focus on the tarbiyat or the upbringing part. And just to give you an example, there is a program called Reber, which we run for our 8th and 9th graders. That program purely focuses on upbringing or tarbiyat part. And if you ask me, the crux is that thought to destiny, which we talk about, and we talk about that you can never have tailor-made situations in life, but you can always have tailor-made responses. So whatever you think is translated into action, and when that action is repeated again and again, it becomes your habit. That habit of yours defines your character over a period of time, and that character of yours determines your destiny. So be careful what you think, you might just get it. So if you have a positive outlook towards life, chances are that you'll have a positive destiny. And if you have a negative outlook towards life, chances are that you'll have a negative destiny.
Great insights. Think before you think. सोच कर जबरदस्त. अच्छा, इसमें एक सवाल है regarding Amazon. Waqar sahab, they want to ask you, and you have pretty much explained as well. But just to क्योंकि इसमें YouTube पे, Facebook पे भी viewers हैं, तो I would like to repeat this question to you. Amazon, तो ये अभी जो हायरिंग कर रहा है, उनका ख्याल है कि क्या ये पहले से उसने पैंडेमिक को सोचा हुआ था, प्लान किया हुआ था, और it's just a chance, और या तो उनकी preparedness थी? Your take on it.
So before I go there, and I think I've responded on the chat as well, but let me just make a quick comment on a couple of things. One is, when I said leadership needs to be a lot more operational and a lot more detailed, and I'm actually saying at this stage, micromanage. So just to clarify, in normal time, I would have never said it, never. I would have said leadership needs to have a helicopter view, do not micromanage, do not go into a lot of detail when not needed, and let organization evolve. And just to give a specific example, I mean, in our various organizations, we used to meet once a quarter for our board meetings to do reviews of performance, etc. Now we are meeting twice a week. To make sure that we are on top of the situations and making decisions. So it's again about how you change yourself in crisis versus in normal time and be adaptive. So that's point number one. Second, I want to make a quick comment on Asfan regarding the Rehbar program. I'm, I think, one of the privileged one to be one of the speaker to many schools. It's an amazing program, and I must give a lot of compliment to TCF for coming up with this entire thought process. Urdu mein usse kehte hain soch se taqdeer tak. So it's absolutely brilliant. Now to the point on Amazon. So what Amazon did well compared to any other organization, more or less, is that they anticipated a digital future many years ago. Not many companies did that. And that is where Amazon is the best prepared today to deal with this crisis. They didn't anticipate the pandemic, but they anticipated a future without knowing that this pandemic will actually land them into a huge opportunity compared to the organizations and thinking which is only entrenched in the physical world. The argument I'm putting forward, for the last month or possibly 2 months, is the solution to social distancing is not just in physical world. The solution to social distancing is in deliberately accelerating, constructing policy making on the digital world. And that is where Amazon has done well. Let me give you another interesting example. And this is from Daraz in one of the panel discussion that we had possibly a week ago. And I think you were a part of it as well, where Daraz CEO said, Daraz is, those who don't know, is the Alibaba's company in Pakistan, recently taken over. Daraz CEO said that their online sales in pandemic, now imagine in pandemic, everything is going down. We are talking about slowdown. We are talking about economy not moving. He said their online sales have gone up. He further said that online sellers, people who want to sell using Daraz, the registration has gone up by 35%. And in that 35%, 70 to 80% come from informal sector. Now, remember, informal sector is the one which doesn't believe in documentation, which doesn't believe in doing online things. They believe in cash. They are entrenched in the physical world. But because they know they cannot work in the physical world, they change and they are going online. So imagine if we could do this through policy intervention, right? So my point on Amazon is not about they anticipated the pandemic. Nobody did. But it's about anticipating the future. And I keep saying it, rather than waiting for the future. And Danny also made an interesting point. And by the way, the best question I've been asked in any live session was actually from a young 8th or 9th grader in TCF school in area of Balochistan where I visited, and when I was giving the message on being positive and how you come out of the past and all the failures or the disasters that hit you in life, and how you vow to paint a picture of the future, and linking it to Danny's point that he made earlier as well, and that this young girl asked me, how do you come out of this tough situation where you've had a big fall and you are down in the ditch? How can you think positive? And think about it. I mean, it's a great question. Now, saying it is very easy that, positive. You are right there in the ditch. You've had a big fall. You had a big disaster. And the answer to that is the moment you keep thinking about the past, the moment you are a victim of your past, your mindset is negative. You're always thinking, why it happened to me? Why only me? God doesn't like me. World doesn't like me. My neighbor doesn't like me. My wife doesn't like me. And you're always in this mindset. But the moment you think about going into the future, you start thinking solutions. Problem by definition negative. Solution by definition is positive. Find solutions to rather than thinking about and the problem is there. We all know it. I mean, nobody need to come and tell me that pandemic is a problem. I mean, I know it. But I need to know how do I navigate in these difficult times, come up with a positive mindset, still paint a picture of the future, and hopefully get to the future.
Excellent. अच्छा, इसमें मैं अपने 2 पॉइंट अगर आप इजाजत दें मुझे would like to discuss. First thing, the detailed. So throughout my experience, I have seen the board. I have been CFO for many years. So I have seen the board only talks about the big picture. Now the time has changed. And I have seen a lot of interviews of Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs, and they know every detail about their business. And that surprises me. They are the top leaders and they talk about the details. But normally in our developing countries, our board talks about the big picture. So that's a big difference. And I think the things are changing now. And the second comment I would like to make on the Rebel program. So that is an excellent. I would like to join your Rebel program as well in whatever capacity you can recommend. So that is amazing actually. And actually जब TCF का नाम आता है तो हमेशा वो Rebel program का नाम आता है. Then there are some good questions for you. Let me go. I think it has gone up now. See, so some person wants to ask you about the mindfulness and meditation. Are these both these things same, meditation and mindfulness? This is his first question. The second question is further, mindfulness is being often adopted by the mainstream very abruptly, as you pointed out, being it environmental disturbances, etc. Kindly advise, does this help or hinder the movement, especially for societies like Pakistan? Yes.
Okay, good question. Good question. So I would say meditation is part of mindfulness. So you have to be mindful about your health and well-being. You have to be mindful about your finances. You have to be mindful about your relationships. You have to be mindful about your work-life balance. So your mindfulness covers every aspect of your life. Now, the way you get into a state of mindfulness, one of the ways you get there is through meditation. So meditation is a means by which you can create more and more mindfulness on a daily basis that will permeate every aspect of your life. That's kind of answer to your first question. The second one is, I would say that if you go to the gym one day and lift a lot of heavy weights and then not exercise for 1 year, what will you get? All you'll get is sore the next day. So basically, meditation is a practice. You don't do it just because there is social disruption or environmental disruption or something's not working. You do it because it's the right thing to do. That's why we say practicing meditation. It's a practice. You never become perfect. It's the more you do it, the better you get, and it's something that you do on a daily basis. And eventually you will see literally miracles happening for you. And it's a practice that you have to, it's like brushing your teeth every day. It's the same thing. But it doesn't work if you just do it for a few days or once a year or twice a year. It's a practice that you need to have. I hope I've answered your question.
Shazad, we can hear you.
Shazad, we cannot hear you.
Gee, so sorry about it. I was just saying, we have received a few questions from various sources, from emails, from WhatsApp, from social media. And one of the question is for Mr. Vikarsa. And he's saying that you have been promoting disruption through digitization. I think he has seen your recent tweets where you have said digitization, digitization, digitization. So he's saying that do we really need pandemic to think about it? Yes, your take on it.
Yeah, so absolutely not. But the fact is, we do, and that's the way things are. I mean, it's an old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Now, this term was coined possibly centuries ago, and we've seen how necessities have transformed creation of products from more or less anything, right? So what pandemic has done, and we should not have waited, and this is what I've been arguing about, that, we should have done it before. I mean, no question. But what pandemic has done is to accentuate the need for change and to accentuate the need for moving away from conventional wisdom and moving away of conventional ways of solving a problem and finding new ways. How do you achieve social distance? I mean, we've seen what has happened once the lockdown has opened. And it is not surprising, or should not be surprising, not just, by the way, in Pakistan. I mean, I've seen pictures from UK, I've seen pictures from other countries as well. Wherever there is lockdown, people have come out in numbers. They've forgotten social distancing. But imagine if we find ways of moving consumers, businesses online. So as an example, those of you who may have seen my post on LinkedIn, I've already announced that whenever we come back to normal, 50% of my workforce will not come back to office. They will forever as a work from home and work remotely, because I want them to be outcome based. I want them to be productivity based. I want them to be not order takers, but enablers of change in their own capacity. So yes, we should not be waiting for pandemic, but it has happened. And because it has, it's a great opportunity for us to transform our economies and our ways of thinking. Don't just think physical. The days are over.
Thank you. The second question is for Mr. Isfandiar Saab, and I think most part of it you have already answered. You can just highlight the positives you see coming out of the crisis for education.
Well, one of the best things which has happened is that, as I was mentioning, that partnership with PTV, there were 17 to 18 different partners who shared their content free of cost. And within a very short span of time, we came to an understanding that this is something very critical and important. Had this pandemic not taken place, I don't think that this would have happened even after 3 or 5 years. So a whole education channel has been opened by PTV, which is beamed through again all across Pakistan, and their partners who came. So I think this was one of the biggest positives which came out from this situation.
Great. Mr. Denny, the person has mentioned a quote from your book, and he says that you have quoted Mr. Alan Kay, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. Now, his question is, how do situations impact inventing the future, both in personal and professional life?
Good question. So it's one of my favorite quotes. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. And it's about, because we can't really see the future. We don't have a crystal ball. Otherwise, we would all be billionaires by now. So you want to live the future that you want to live in, you can actually invent that now. So in the present moment, you start creating the future, you start creating the world, you start creating the relationships, you start creating the business that you want to live in. So it all, at the end of the day, it all comes from within you, because you got to remember that the human conviction has a viral effect. So if you have the conviction of creating a future that's going to resonate for you, then you can very easily start building that. You don't have to wait for a pandemic to hit. You don't have to wait for some disturbances to come through. You don't have to wait for some illnesses or, the depressions, economic depressions to hit you. You can actually sit and create the future you want to see in the next 1 or 2 years through the power that you possess within yourself. And that's what it means, that the best way to predict the future is to invent it yourself. Usually you can add after that, you can say predict, invented through the unknown, because you can't really see what's going to happen in the future, but you can always invent it the way you want it to work for you.
So it's about your own preparedness, being ready for change.
About projection, what you visualize in the future, who you want to become. The thing to remember is that, when at the end of life, and I sometimes have conversations with people who are at, very late stages in life, nobody ever says or talks about what they got, how much money they made, how much success they had, all their achievements. Nobody talks about that. They always talk about who they became and what they gave. So it's what you give and who you become in the process of giving is what's really going to hold value for you. It's not about getting. It's never about getting. So if you want to leave a legacy, you're the only one who can create that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, excellent. Acha, Miss Aisha Sethi wants to ask a live question. Yes, Miss Aisha. Yeah, Aisha Sethi, are you there? Okay, let me come to the next question. That is, how should a corporate or human person should respond to failures? For example, business going bankrupt or loss of a job. Yeah, that's an excellent question. If a person has already lost a job, so what should he do? Any strategy, any practical guidelines? Yes, I would like to ask both Mr. Waqar and Mr. Danny. Waqar, sir?
So maybe I go first. I think more or less the answer that I gave to that young girl should be the starting point. What has happened, right? Now, the only reason past exists is to learn from it, but not to live in it. And that is extremely important to understand. A lot of people love to live in the past. If something bad has happened, it is behind you, learn from it. And the most practical advice, and by the way, whatever I'm saying is also saying from experience. Like Danny, I have a corporate career. I mean, I was all over the world, working for top corporations, a stellar career. Then I had a small health issue. And in the hospital, I decided to quit the corporate world and be my own man and be an entrepreneur and carve out a new journey for myself. I didn't look in the past and say, oh, I had this corporate future and this title and a life out of a jet, more or less. I said, that's past. I've learned from it. I've become a better person from it. How do I now use it to create a new career for myself, starting literally from scratch and build it up. And that's not easy when you do it after 27 years of working in a certain career and moving and completely changing your direction because of an event that happened in your life. So it's all about not living in the past, painting a picture of the future. Once you have painted it, believe in it, and then ruthlessly pursue it. Chances are you will get there.
Okay. Shehzad, we can't hear you.
Sorry. I was asking you, you would like to shed 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Waqar says, that accepting it, the first step is acceptance. The instant manifestation of acceptance is peace. So the minute you accept what's going on, you're in a mode of peace. You've already reset the dial. Can be a little bit difficult for some people, but it's a muscle you need to work towards. And when you are in a sense of peace and acceptance, then you go into the place of creation. I'll give you a very real example. One of my clients, he was a CEO of a brand called Burberry, which most of you might know. Once he comes to me, he was released from one of the country jurisdictions he was a CEO of. He was very upset, very depressed, very absolutely. He was literally almost sobbing in my office. And if you look at his CV, he has the CV of a rock star. He was he was the head of some amazing multinational organizations. For confidentiality reasons, I can't say much, but he had an amazing CV. And when you look at him, you would wonder why he is so depressed with what's gone on with him. And he lost a job. Now, he was in his middle 40s, so he was probably in his pinnacle of his career. Now, the story he was telling himself was that I've been fired. I will never get a job again, or never get a good job again. I will not make enough money. I will not be able to support my children. I will not probably be on the same position I was before. And he kept relating that same story again and again. And he said, this is a youth-based society. So now it's more, I have to give chance to the younger people, and probably my career is over. And I said, that's completely rubbish. And we worked together, and slowly, he started changing his story about how much contribution he's made already in his career, how many people's lives he's changed, what sort of a career and what sort of a life he's built for himself, his family, and his clients. And in a matter of weeks, he was presented with 3 opportunities. Now, the first 2 opportunities were really, really good in the sense that they were very established brands. The third opportunity was somewhat of a risk because it was actually starting a brand from scratch. Now, because he had realized that it is more important to follow what you're passionate about, it is more important to be in your own power, it is more important to do something more meaningful, he went for the opportunity which he said in normal situations he would have never taken. And within 18 months, he's actually created an amazing brand. And it's an American brand that he brought into Asia, and he's done a fantastic job there. So the first step is acceptance. Once you accept, you get into a phase of peace, and then you move into creation. So, negative events happen in all of our lives. It happens in my business as well. It happens in my situation as well. But it's how you bounce back is what really, is the strength of your character.
Excellent. Yeah, the next question, I would go for some a little bit faster over here. So, Mr. Isfandiar, this is an excellent question actually. Okay. What strategies are important to corporates and individuals making donations while those are also sufferers of the economic impacts of pandemic? And how is your story how is your story sold to the donors while they decide on the donations? Because there are a lot of charities available, a lot of institutions, there are medical charities, education charities. So what's your take on it? This?
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you asked this question. Actually, as I said earlier, that when again this COVID situation arose, and we were again an organization which was doing and working for education for the past 25 years, and that is exactly what we have been doing. But what we decided was that since we had again taken this on us that we will be serving these communities, so in this crisis, since their livelihood is at stake, we should also make a contribution towards it. So we, as I mentioned earlier, that we came up with this 500 million fund, which we thought we'll distribute, and alhamdulillah, it has been doing very well. So we are relevant right now to the situation also. So it's not that other charities definitely are doing a great job, and I really admire some of the charities. They've been working really very well. But we are also very relevant because we are serving to the most, again, marginalized communities in Pakistan, and we are providing cash and ration. And our approach is little unique because we prefer providing cash instead of ration. And the reason is because when you inject cash in an economy, there are a lot of microeconomic activities they take place. So for instance, if you invest 1.5 million in a small community, so a vegetable person might end up taking medicine, and medicine person might end up paying rent of his house, and so on and so forth. Number two, 14,000 of our employees belong to those communities. So the ayahs, the chowkidars, the maids, the drivers, and most of our teachers also belong to those communities. So we don't want, at the end of the day, to have a callous behavior by, again, firing those people and reducing our costs. So we are also asking for those people, because at the end of the day, we don't want that they should be standing in those lines and in those queues and asking for ration. So we are not only again raising money for people outside TCF, we are also raising money for people whose only livelihood depends on TCF. So both those stories have helped us. It has been a struggle, but Ramzan, alhamdulillah, has been a blissful month for us. But post Ramzan also, our story will remain the same, because there's a long way to go. And we are hoping that we'll be able to raise enough funds to maintain and keep moving. But it will be what I'm foreseeing, that it will be a tough journey. It will be difficult, and we will have to come up with new and innovative way and new possibilities.
Thank you for the insights. There are a lot of appreciation on the chat session here. TCF alumni are the live examples who have raised in times of adversity. There is some appreciation for Mr. Vikas Saab, great words for Vikas Saab of being in the mode of anticipation.
Thank you.
And there are some appreciations for Danny on the mindfulness and things. There are a lot of appreciations we are receiving here on Facebook, on WhatsApp, everywhere. Excellent. But I would not like to disclose how many people are watching us, so it doesn't impact me as much whether 1 people is watching or 1 billion people are watching. So to be very honest with you, but if you like, then I can ask my team to let me know, and I can inform you in the private chat. So Miss Aisha Sethi likes to ask a live question. Yes, Miss Aisha Sethi. Aisha, are you there? If she's not there, let's take last question, and then we can move to.
She has to unmute herself.
Yep. Let me try to unmute. Yes, Aisha.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. I have 1 question for Danny and 1 question for Mr. Waqarul Islam. So Danny, thank you for your insights. Wonderful learning on mindfulness, meditation, and emotional intelligence. Now, since I'm an emotional intelligence practitioner myself, and I train employees in corporates over here, so one thing that I observed during my own trainings was that people over here feel quite rushed. And even getting them to practice meditation or introspection for like 5 minutes is a challenge, because this is something which is not exactly a part of a culture. So for people who are new to this practice, who are new to this terminology such as mindfulness, meditation, and emotional intelligence, how do we go about it?
Well, it's a good question. Thanks for asking. Now, we have to appreciate that everybody has a different journey in terms of their awareness. So you can't go the full 100 yards in the first time. It doesn't work. So what you do is go by a gradient. So you take the first small step, then you take the second small step, you take the third small, and show people what's the benefit of being mindful. Because when people resonate and see the value in what you're teaching, then they are more inclined to learn. Yeah. And if you want to teach them meditation, you can probably do it for just 3 minutes. Just give them a flavor of it. Just get people who have seen real impact or successes from mindfulness. So there are many ways you can actually get people enrolled in it, because people don't remember what you say. People don't remember what they hear. They remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
So the way you actually make them feel during these processes is what they'll remember. And if it resonates, we'll practice it. That's why we say we practice it. We don't actually do it, right? We just go
Thanks,
step
Danny.
forward. And the other thing is, when I understand where you're coming from, and if you feel that people are too rushed and it's difficult, it's also your energy and confidence that they are picking up. So if you put it out of your mind that there is no rush, there is nothing to stop you from doing it, your energy, your energetic will actually transcend onto them, and you will find that they will also start listening to you or resonating with you more. It's a different technique of working, but maybe that might help.
Because at the end of the day, our auras interact with each other, and our vibrational frequencies, they do synchronize. I've spent some time exploring energy and healing from the energetic perspective as well. For Mr. Waqarul Islam, my question to you is that I know you are a great advocate of digitalization, but currently I see in times of this pandemic that people are in a state of denial, including the employees who are part of the organization. So they think that after a month or two, things will go back to the way they are. And this is probably the reason why the resistance to change or adopt new technology or new mindset would be there. So, in these circumstances, what role can leadership play to help people come out of this denial and actually start implementing digital technologies?
I think first is for the leaders to change. Before you talk about change, before you instill changes in your people, you need to accept that you need to change yourself. And as I said, you cannot continue to work with conventional wisdom and solve a completely unconventional problem in a conventional way. So that just logic doesn't work. And that's why, in the last 2 days, see what has happened in the lockdown. So what are these lockdowns doing? Think about it. Lockdown is not a panacea. It's not a cure as sold to us by some Einsteins, right? All lockdown does is to delay the spread so you prepare the economy and your health system to open up. Now, on the health side, I see a lot of work being done all around the world, and a lot of progress is being made, at least to prepare. And also a lot of investment has gone in terms of, making investments for the future. But on the economy side, all the solutions we have seen, especially in the emerging economies like ours, are from the conventional world.
Hmm.
And I continue to insist, you will not achieve social distancing. I don't care whether they open up for after 2 months or 8 months or 10 months or a year, you will not achieve social distancing in the traditional physical world. You have to construct a digital world blend it with the physical world, and then you have a chance, only a chance. Second point, I wrote in an article. So there are three type categories of people, organizations, and countries, I think, which will emerge out of this. So first are leaders, leaders who will accept there is a problem, individually, as an organization, and as a country, who will accept there is a problem and who will take a lead in finding new ways of solving the problem. So they will be the leaders. Then the second category are those who will say, yeah, fine, someone has taken a lead, it makes sense, and I'll follow it. But they will follow the change and they will follow a new normal, whatever it is going to be. And then there will be a third category, and what you are hinting at is actually the third category, and I fear for them. And that third category would be itching and yearning to go back to pre-March or pre-COVID time. I've been saying that let's write their obituaries now.
Great, great. Any great insights. Let me move on to the next rapid fire, which is actually more interesting round for the audience. So ask you some of the questions, and in one word or one sentence, you can respond. So there are a few questions, and let me start with Mr. Danny. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You just reply with one sentence or one word. Living with purpose, start with why.
Is the answer to your question, who am I?
Great. Living in past versus living in present.
Living in the past makes you feel stuck and overwhelmed.
Action or strategy.
Action beats strategy every day of the week.
Action beats strategy, or it's the other way around. Normally I hear about the strategy. Okay. Feedback.
Feedback is the breakfast of champions.
That's great comment. How much is the importance of communication now and in future?
Well, communication is the mother of all necessities now.
Great. Mr. Waqar, transformation of jobs. Mr. Waqar, are you there? Let me continue with.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Sorry. So the answer is absolutely yes. Time to transform your business, yourself, your way of working, your way of leadership, everything.
Education or personal development?
Both.
Tourism industry?
Bad news. They will be the last one to come back.
Okay, we heard you. Importance of handshakes. That's interesting, actually.
I can now feel the importance of handshake, touch, feel, hug. I don't think any one of us felt more, how much is the value of these things when it is not there. So it's priceless.
Great. Passion mindset versus craftsman mindset.
I would always go with passion mindset.
Passion. Danny, you, passion mindset or craftsman?
Well, passion mindset, because when your vocation becomes your vacation, you've actually made it.
Great. Isfandiar Saab, giver or taker?
Giver, always.
Public opinion versus reputation?
I think, I don't know the difference between the two. They're both the same, but public opinion.
Anything anything comes into your mind, anything like, for example, public opinion bad, you can say anything. So I ask again, public opinion or reputation?
Well, I think reputation is important because that builds trust in people or organizations. So reputation.
Inner peace?
Extremely important if you want to live a healthy life.
Danny, you want to say something on inner peace?
I want to say something on inner peace. Well, I think inner peace can move mountains. When you are peaceful, you can actually do so much you can't even imagine.
Great. Now, next question to all of you. Actually, all next questions to all of you. So we can go Danny, Vikar, and Isfandiar. What is success?
For me, success is 80% psychology, 20% mechanics.
Mr. Vikar.
So if you achieve what you wanted to achieve, that's success.
Sandhya.
Well, I think success, one of the most important things is relationships. So no matter how bad the situation is, if you're maintaining good relationship with people who are important to you, you are a successful person. No matter how good things otherwise are in your life and you're not maintaining good relationship with people who are important to you, you are not successful. Relationships.
I have learned from your sentence. Mindfulness versus meditation. Danny.
I would say it's a gateway to miracles.
Vikasa.
I would say mindfulness.
Isfandiar.
Well, it is a gateway to inner peace, I think, mindfulness.
Networking.
Networking can make your dreams happen much faster. Definitely.
Vikasa.
Absolutely. Gateway to the future.
Isfandiar, sir.
Well, I think someone defined it really well, that your number of people you know and how well you know them, that is what defines your success.
I remember a quote, if you are not networking, you are not working. If you, yeah, if you were made aware of pandemic before 6 months before it's happening, yes, 6 महीने पहले से आपको पता था, yes, Mr. Danny, what would you do?
Buy a mask.
Buy a mask or hot masks? Vikasa.
Yeah, build more immunity for myself and my business.
Great, Isfandiar.
Well, I would have declared emergency on an international level.
Okay, key area to focus in times of adversity. One word or one sentence. Every one of you.
Sorry, come again?
Can you come again?
Key area to focus in times of adversity. Just one word or one sentence. What is the key area to focus? What would you do? One sentence in times of adversity.
Live with solutions, not problem.
Great.
Your consciousness.
Sandhya.
Respond instead of reacting.
Okay. The next question, I know the Vikar's answer on this. Continue work from home even after pandemic. Yes or no?
Absolutely. I mean, new way of working. And then, just to answer, I mean, I believe it needs to be blended with the physical world. So it's not either or, it's both.
Yeah. Danny.
Both.
Sandhya, sir.
Yes, absolutely. Yes and no. So it totally depends on the kind of business you are, but I think a certain percentage should work from home. It will definitely reduce your cost and increase efficiency.
How about going 50% work from home and 50% physical?
Again, as I said, that it totally depends on the type of business you're in. So it will vary, but some percentage definitely more or less should be working from home.
Next question, Isfandiar, you first. Convert education into fully digital model or just add digital mode as additional feature in schools? Isfandiar first.
Well, it should be added as an additional mode than only digital, because in our experience, what we have learned is that blended learning is one of the best way to get student learning outcomes. So there should be some supervisor who should be available, and it should be again added and supported by digital education. So that is the, again, best outcome results you'll get through blended learning so far. I can't predict about the future.
Mr. Danny.
You see, we are social animals, and for us, physical interaction is very important. So I think there is really no negotiation on that. So where you can actually physically meet people, that's the best thing. But of course, online digitization is an amazing, amazing second best. But you cannot take away the physical interaction in any situation.
Because
It's just achieving the right blend, and that's what it is. And each business and each individual need to make a decision what is the right blend for him or the business. But it's not either or, as I said, it's both.
great, amazing session. I would like to thank everyone, Mr. Danny, Mr. Vikar, Mr. Isfandiar. Actually, I have learned a lot today. And from today onwards, I would be more prepared. I would be more proactive. I would be more detailed. I have learned so much thing. And Mr. Danny has highlighted on the mindfulness. So it's time I start meditating and I start practicing mindfulness, both from business perspective as well as from personal life perspective. And Isfandiar, great. I'm coming for Rebel program, sir. When are you inviting me? Yes.
Jesse school खुलते हैं. As soon as schools are opened, you're more than welcome. I have made a note of it.
Thank you. And I would also request all of the panelists to join us on some other panel, on some other discussion, thought-provoking. And to me, you are exceptional panelists. I enjoyed a lot. Thank you very much. I would like to give back to Ms. Aisha and Mr. Ismail. And yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So Shehzad, you want me to take over from here? All right. So thank you everyone for your participation today. It was great having all of you, and I hope that everyone got to learn some things that they can start applying in their daily lives from now on, because we are hearing a lot of webinars these days. There are a lot of conversations happening, a lot of dialogue is happening, but as long as it doesn't stay in your mind, then or it flies over the top of your head, then it has added little or no value to your life. So even if it were just 3 key things that you can take away from today's session, and for me it was about mindfulness, and it was about accepting the changes that are happening and taking a proactive approach and becoming more self-aware. So just identify these 3 key takeaways and start applying them on a day-to-day basis. So thank you very much. And thank you, Shehzad, for having me over. It was a pleasure to be a part of this.
Yes, over to you, Ismail bhai, for word of thanks from Excellence Online platform.
Thank you very much, all district speakers. Thank you for being with us. And definitely today was a very great show. And I really would like to thank each and everybody. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank my team also, who is working behind this all the webinar. So thank you very much, everybody. Wish you good.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Isfandiar. Thank you, Ismail bhai. Thank you, Aisha. Excellent. Amazing.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.